Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Riding of Yorkshire series. Together with the unparished city of Hull, it forms the county of the same name. There's 172 parishes here. Which one are we in today? Hello folks, welcome back to the East Riding of Yorkshire once again. It's still January, it's still cold, I've still got the hat on and I've still dressed up like I'm an Eskimo. But there's one good thing about certain parts of the UK, and that would be the seaside. And at any time of year, you know, whether it's cold or whether it's blazing hot, it makes no difference. You can still walk down the beach and enjoy the sound of the sea. And you can definitely do that here in this parish because it has a long coastline on Bridlington Bay. Welcome to the parish of Barmston. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Barmston, Beorn's town. This week in the East Riding we're once again at the seaside, and what a stretch of coastline this one has. This is Barmston, which sits in the fabulous Bridlington Bay, 6 miles south of the town, which gives it its name. The bay is a popular spot for tourists at any time of year. Barmston Beach was given the coveted Blue Flag Rural Beach Award in 2005, but that's now been removed owing to access issues. Nonetheless, tourism is still the main driver behind the village's economy. There are several caravan parks and holiday lets in the village and its surroundings, and you can bet they're all full in the summertime. The parish bounds the coast for a number of miles, and in doing so covers the village of Fraisthorpe, which, like its neighbour, has a beach in the bay. Barmston Parish used to cover the villages of Winkton, Auburn and Hartburn too, but those have now been lost to coastal erosion. At Fraisthorpe there's a massive wind farm, an abandoned church and an actual church which is no longer in use. Barmston also has a church of its own, as well as a pretty pond, a chapel, a pub and an overall sense of East Riding tranquility. It's all soundtracked by the sound of the sea, so what are we waiting for? Get out your beach towels and bikinis, we're off for a paddle in the North Sea. We start with Fraisthorpe, a village to the north of Barmston, which has a 1.5 mile long windy lane between it and the East Yorkshire coastline. The largest landmarks in these parts are the tall turbines of Fraisthorpe Wind Farm. This was built in 2015 and began generating electricity a year later. There are 9 turbines in total. The wind farm wasn't built without objections. The MOD were among those opposed to it because they thought it would interfere with the operations of RRH Staxton Wold near Scarborough. This objection was eventually dropped. Artist David Hockney was also quoted as saying that the turbines would deface the landscape of Bridlington Bay. I guess you can draw your own opinions. Fraisthorpe contains the last remnants of Auburn, a village that's disappeared from the coastline. One landmark that remains is the ruined chapel of St Nicholas, which was demolished in the 1780s. Here, I've stopped to point that out to you. It's within the clump of trees you can see on the right of shot. Auburn's name is also still used by the farm that's close by, part of which stands on earthworks of the former village. One of the farm's buildings has been converted into a beach cafe called the Cowshed, which you pass as you head for Fraisthorpe Beach. A second outbuilding is now a public toilet block. After opening 6 years ago, the Cowshed is currently closed owing to staff shortages. It does though have a takeaway called the Calf Shed, which is still open. Full cafe or not though, Fraisthorpe Beach will always be an attraction. As the road comes to an end, it turns into a big car park that overlooks the shallow cliff with the beach beneath. It's a great little spot, and at any time of year, there's nothing quite like some vitamin C. So here we go then folks, here's Bridlington Bay. Look at this. Fabulous. That's Fraisthorpe Beach in front of us. Let's get a little bit closer to the edge so you can see. I don't want to go too close to the edge because this cliff is falling away. We're used to hearing that, aren't we, in the East Riding? You can see Bridlington over there in the distance and the cliffs of Flamborough Head. We haven't got to Flamborough yet. We will do soon. And then there'll be an even better view out there, I'm pretty sure. But that's a lovely shot of Bridlington from here on Fraisthorpe Beach. Fabulous. And listen to the waves. You know, even on a cold January morning, the sound of the sea is always the same. Soothing. Fabulous. Right, I better go and pay for this car park because there are ANPR cameras here. And then we'll move on to the church. There's a church here in Fraisthorpe, as well as the chapel, the ruined chapel that I've just told you about. There's also a church in Fraisthorpe village. We'll go back to that and then we'll head for Barmston itself. Fraisthorpe's church is dedicated to St Edmund, but there are no services held here these days. It's a private property, and it's used as one of the most unique holiday lets anywhere along the Yorkshire coastline. Originally 13th century, St Edmund's was remodelled in 1893 by Smith and Broderick. The chancel and nave are unified and constructed of rubble and cobble. Remaining from that 1893 rebuild are the 4-foot-high remains of a 13th century pier in the south wall, which Nicholas Pevsner asserted might be evidence of a former south aisle. As for the rest of the village, well, it's another little farming settlement of the type we're so used to seeing in the East Riding now. There are very few houses and less than 100 people here. Fraisthorpe was originally within Carnaby until it became a separate parish in 1866. In 1896 it was abolished to form Fraisthorpe with Auburn and Wilsthorpe. Wilsthorpe then broke away and Fraisthorpe was merged with Barmston. A landmark here is the Millennium Stone Marker. This tells us how close to the sea the village was in the year 2000. Barmston has one of these too. Okay, so that's Fraisthorpe. Now let's go to Barmston itself, and to be honest with you, it's not much bigger than this. The two settlements, Barmston and Fraisthorpe, you could say are like twin sisters in a way. Neither one is any bigger or better than the other. Let's go and find it, shall we? We begin our trip around Barmston in the same way as we did Fraisthorpe. Located at the far end of what is a linear village bounding the coast is Barmston Beach. Without question, the key modern industry in these parts is tourism. This is Barmston Beach Holiday Park, located right on the coastline on former agricultural land. This is perilously close to the edge of the fast eroding cliffs, but remains popular, especially in the summer months. Barmston is one of the worst locations in England for coastal erosion. Numerous properties have been demolished over the years to prevent them falling into the sea. There was once a road that led down to the beach, but these days access to it can only be gained by driving through the caravan park to the park's local shop. A road still exists to the cliff top, but it's blocked off by a barrier. There was also a coast road too, but that was completely lost to the sea in 1996. Barmston was awarded the Blue Flag Rural Beach Award in 2005, but access issues meant it was removed just 5 years later in 2010. We start our main walk on Hollycroft, one of the last cul-de-sacs off the main road to Barmston Beach. That main road is called Sands Lane, appropriate, given it runs to the golden sands of Bridlington Bay. Like Fraisthorpe, the population of Barmston is small, but a portion of it is made up of long-term holidaymakers. As such, therefore, it does require more facilities than its twin sister. Here's the phone box, which has the defib machine. Quite a lot of the people who live here moved to the village in retirement, so it's quite a peaceful place too. You wouldn't initially know it, but Barmston is built along the northern side of a shallow valley. Historically a lot further from the sea, its economy was all about farming, which hasn't totally disappeared. For example here, free-range eggs are still sold by the roadside. This eastern end of the village features the local pub. Originally called the Bull and Dog, this is the Black Bull. Even this has gone down the tourism route these days, boasting as it does some fine luxury lodges designed for those seeking a more extraordinary holiday. The pub is opposite the village pond. This was originally much larger because it was an animal watering and washing station. It used to protrude right out into the village street, which meant cars and people often ended up in it. It was turned into the pond we see today in 1974 for safety reasons. The parish notice board is here too, so let's get this out of the way. Notice the council terms itself Barmston and Fraisthorpe. The parish also has an emblem, a horse and plough, which can be seen on a local weather vane designed by Martin Wastling. Can you catch a bus to Barmston? You can catch two actually. At this stop you can get the numbers 130 and 136, which both go to Bridlington, but also to Driffield and Hornsea respectively. After a short burst of residential properties, our next landmark can be found along one of the few side streets. This is the former Wesleyan Chapel, built by Sir Henry Winkton in 1839. We've heard that name before, haven't we? That's the same man who once lived in Burton Agnes Hall. The Boyntons were also major landowners out here. Back to Sands Lane, and next we have the old pump, once the source of Barmston's water until pipes reached the village. The early 20th century saw a period of growth in Barmston. Nowadays houses line both sides of Sands Lane, but that wasn't always the case. It's not known for definite, but Barmston's early houses probably all stood to the south of Sands Lane. By the mid-18th century there was only one farmhouse and half a dozen other properties which occupied the northern side. One of the latter was an almshouse built in 1726, which still stands today. This was built by Sir Griffith Boynton for the free accommodation of 4 poor men from Barmston, Burton Agnes, Haysthorpe and Roxby in the Old North Riding. This was sold in 1958 and the proceeds of the sale were invested into the Boyntons Almshouse charity, which still exists today. Next is Rectory Farm Caravan Park, yet more evidence of how tourism has replaced farming as the main form of business here. We're approaching the western end of the village now and the end of civilization, but before we do, here's Barmston House. Also still to catch is the village hall. This was built thanks to the Barmston Village Institute Trust in 1955. At the same time, nearby land was leased for a cricket pitch. This has served both Barmston and Fraisthorpe since it was built, and it's the only building of its type in either. Barmston's Millennium Stone is on the grass outside. This was 1,200 metres from the sea in 2000. By 2012, that had reduced to just 1,162. Moving on, Barmston can be considered a village of two unequal parts because after the village hall it's split by a strip of open countryside. Our last landmark is located on the other side of that open strip. At the western end is the Church of All Saints. This is a gorgeous medieval building which has stood on Sands Lane since the 12th century. It's carried a Grade 1 listing since 1966. Although it still has 3 services every month, back in 2022 its future was under threat thanks to its congregation being down to single figures. This led to the launch of an initiative named Bums on Pews, designed to save the church by getting more people through its door. I wonder if it worked. And if I didn't know better, I would say the field that's right next to the church looks very earthworky. I wonder whether there were some kind of medieval buildings there in the past. Most likely, because we find plenty of earthwork sites around East Yorkshire and in Lincolnshire as well. And it seems likely there was something there once upon a time. That's it for Barmston Village, because after the church the road just runs off into the A165, and that's where I'm heading now to go to the next one. The only other landmark at this end is an old abandoned petrol station on the A165, but aside from that, Barmston is in the books. Next week we'll be in another parish with a wind farm, but their propeller-like blades aren't the only thing of note. What they're built on is quite interesting in itself. See you down the coast for some fish and chips. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.